Welcome to the Concert Queen Connect. So excited to have our next guest. I feel like it's completing this puzzle. We've talked to a lot of different people. You've heard his name mentioned in this show in different episodes. He's a singer, songwriter, producer, DJ, podcast host as well, over all these crazy, amazing projects. Mr. Walker Lukens, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah.
I kept telling, I think it was like Curtis was the last person I talked to that was like, I want Walker on the show. And then we ran into you, it was at Golden Dawn, which is a great show. So have you been going out into shows and kind of like everything, like life is kind of back to normal now for you?
Yeah. The show where I saw you was the first night I went out and kind of with reckless abandon, you know. But since then, yeah, I've been going out. I DJ'd at Cheer Up Charlie's early June. That was I DJ'd inside.
Oh,
and
wow.
That for me was the
because it's not a big. They have that
off.
Huge out like back door outdoors.
It was raining, so that's why the DJ said I moved inside. And I was like, well, I guess I'm doing this. I'm vaccinated. Let's try.
Yeah. Well, I heard you in some of your other podcasts that you were a guest on. You talked about like not wanting, and Tamika Jones was like that as well, like not wanting during COVID to like really do shows because you didn't want to put kind of anyone in harm's way with that.
Yeah, I just didn't want, I just didn't want people to ever associate getting sick with coming to my show. So
yeah,
I did one thing outdoors during all of COVID. And other than that, I just didn't perform.
Yeah.
I guess I did some private Zoom stuff, but yeah, I just was like, I'll figure something else out. I don't really want to try to make this work, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it seems like you have a lot of different outlets too, kind of like when we had Bob Schneider here, he was talking about all these different projects that he does. But with you, I feel like you have exponentially all these different things, and they're like really creative kind of things.
Thanks.
Like there's I definitely want to talk about your song Confessional, because I feel like would you say like takes up, it seems like it would take, we see how much this takes up as far as like our time and with the podcast and a show, but something like that just seems like it's really, really, really well produced.
Thanks. That does take up a lot of time.
Can you tell people about like kind of how that whole
the song
idea came?
It's this project where basically we record people telling their own stories anonymously, and then we give the recordings to songwriters and bands who write and record an original song based on an anonymous person's experience, right? It started me and Zach Catanzaro, who has played drums with me for years, and we do the song Confessional together. Basically, we were on tour for like all of 2015 and 2016, or all of 2016, 2017. And it's like so boring, you know? I mean,
being on tour?
And playing the same songs and like doing the same promotion for the same stuff. And so after the show, someone came up to me and they're like, hey, your song, this particular song like means so much to me. I listened to this record the summer that my mom died. This person's parent passed away. They're like, I listened to your record all summer. It really helped me get through it. And the thing I kept thinking as they were telling me that was very touched, but also that didn't inspire my album, you know, but that's what they took from listening to it. And so in my brain, it hatched the idea of like, what if you could write songs for people based on their own experiences, you know? So instead of, because I've definitely had the experience of listening to music, and it means a lot to me because of the meaning that I give to it, you know? Yeah. So I sort of had this idea, and I started talking with Zach, and we were thinking about other projects to do, or just non-touring stuff. And we started kind of formulating this whole thing. And originally we were going to rent a hotel during South by and have it be a hotel room and have it be this thing where people walk in, tell a story. And then we found a crazy deal on a camper trailer So we bought it. We made the trailer into like a mobile confessional booth. And so the South by 2018, we did this activation, and people would come and tell stories, and the bands would write and record a song on the spot. And it just sort of grew from there. So after like a year of doing it, we decided to do a podcast, which we have the Confessional podcast, which is about to come back. But pre-COVID, we were traveling around, going to music festivals and bringing the trailer and gathering stories.
Oh, wow. So did you market that, or how was that whole, like, how do people know, like, to go to that when you were doing these different shows?
Usually it sort of all falls on the festival. I mean, it was a blue trailer with a big sign. So the thing we found is that generally most people think the idea is cool, but they're not willing to do it until they've had a couple drinks or they've had a couple days to think about it.
Interesting.
So day one at the festival, you don't get a lot of confessions, but by day 3,
everyone's in there. There's all kinds of sins happening.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so are you actually, because I was listening to your 72 Hours in Newport, which, Steve's from Newport, so he's got that whole connection.
Oh my God, Newport in the summer.
Yeah, I'm going, are you going to be there next month?
I'm not, but I'm going to be nearby, but I'm not going to the festival. It's so wonderful in the
That's
summer.
what he says,
it's
like,
crazy.
all the time.
Oh my God, the weather is perfect. All the seafood is amazing. So fresh, yeah.
Look at that smile. I haven't seen him smile like that. He's excited.
I'm excited to go back.
Yeah.
That'll be really cool. But so I was listening to kind of, and the way, so if people are not familiar, like you said, you kind of, the way that it's produced as well, it sounds like, are you interviewing them, or are they just speaking to a camera? Or are they just recording? Like, how does that whole process work?
I mean, there's literally a screen between us. So it's like,
so you're like okay. Are you in the whole like pre-scarb?
They can't see us.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering that. Okay. That makes sense. Cause I was like, oh my God, how are they talking to them?
Yeah. So usually, that before someone comes into the confessional booth, they've been explaining the project. And so when you're taking the confession, you're just sort of like helping it come out. Some people like have it all together and they don't need any, help getting their story out. But other people, they've never told what they're talking about to anybody. So like, I don't know, it doesn't make sense. You know what I'm saying? Like they've only told people they know. Yeah. Yeah. What would you say? What was one of the most like, I guess, kind of gut wrenching like confession that you've heard so far? Well, okay. So of the gut wrenching ones that are like on the podcast, I would say that the one that Kat Edmondson wrote a song for, which was a confession. This woman's fiance committed suicide, and she really didn't see it coming, which is part of why it was so devastating. The other part was that she was at Newport Folk Festival with his best friends, like kind of in memorial of him committing suicide. It was just super, super heavy. Wow. That is definitely the most kind of devastating one. I listened to that. I listened to that one. So yeah, like what you're saying. So then it's like you get these really kind of heavy songs, and then to hear. So then how are you going and like selecting Kat Edmondson, for instance, to do that song? I wish that I could say that it was like this magic formula that we spent a lot of time perfecting, but I've actually found that songwriters like really rise to the occasion, and we a lot of songs are made that never come out. Like it's just they become a song and we send it to the confessor and that's it. Very rarely has there been someone written a song that like was disrespectful. Like I found that people really like whoever is writing the song really tries to like match the vulnerability and the intensity of the person giving the confession. As far as Kat goes, I mean, she's friends with Jim, who's one of the people who works on the project. And so she was in town and he was like, hey, I bet we could get her to do one. And he was like, we should give her something that's like, what did he say? Give her one of those stories that's not like crazy, like fantastical crazy. I was like, oh, okay, well, we have this amazing confession. It's really heart wrenching. He's like, oh yeah, maybe we'll do that. And then, she did all the work.
Yeah.
She's the one that she rose to the occasion of the song, you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I listened to, I want to get this one because it was the love letter. Because like you said, these confessions are not, you actually hear, so you're actually hearing the person say this confessional, which I think is different too. It's not like you guys just reading it. It's like,
on
so
the
you're
podcast, you hear the confession and then you hear the song and then you hear an interview with the songwriter. So you do get kind of the full
experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was one that like, I literally almost cried listening to it. So
are you talking about the guy
who
read the letter?
Oh, God,
that's so hard.
Woo. So this guy reads this letter and it's like to his lover that I guess that he's grown up with and matured with. And then so he's sad. Like telling her, no, like we're not going to do this anymore. And you just feel the angst. And I was like, because you're right. Like that's why I'm spending time on this topic because I just think it's so fascinating because like you said, the reverse is usually like it's your experience and people are connecting. So this way it's like you have these songwriters connecting with the complete opposite. And so something like,
I don't even know who it is. Yeah.
Which was wild.
It was it was Odessa.
Yes,
Odessa
that's what
wrote that song.
Yes.
I remember that one. It
gives me goosebumps again. Like it was you did?
I was remembering because I took that confession. That was so hard. That was really heart-wrenching. And he was really like, so he had been in this long relationship and they got together when they were kids and now they're like, sounds like they're in their mid-20s or something. That was tough. Yeah. He was so angry.
Was he?
Well, I felt like in that letter, it was like tender, but it was really bitter. And you could tell the ways that like, he kind of still wanted it to be them to be together, you know? I was like, oh God.
Because there's so many, like you said, it's so relatable. Because there's so many people, like, I mean, we've all been in those relationships where it's like you want it to work and we all have that. I think everybody does that. You glamorize and you fantasize about a relationship, about that. But yeah, just hearing that was like, whoa. And then
that one was tough.
Yeah. So have you had any like really kind of funny ones, like funny confessionals?
Oh yeah. We have one on the season that we're making right now. This guy was in college. He lived with a bunch of dudes, and one of his college roommates, I think they live in a house together, he got arrested. So not the confessor, but his friend got arrested for buying a gun illegally. So I don't own any guns. I don't know shit about owning guns, but he bought a gun like on the black market, which I guess is illegal. And because he did that, it involved and he bought it in another state and transported it back. Basically, the FBI got involved.
Oh.
So the FBI gets involved. They go to this like 22-year-old's house and they're looking through all of his stuff and they see these photos of this guy and all of his friends like with guns, and they had a sign. They called their house like I think they called it the Wyoming Al Qaeda headquarters. Oh my God. And this is like in 2005.
Oh
like,
my God.
But they're just dipshit college kids.
Wow. Yeah.
And so the confessor is like, yeah, my friend got arrested. He got put on probation. But then they came to his house because they saw this Al Qaeda thing and they found all the people in the photos. And this literally I think it was actually the Secret Service. They show up at his house and are interrogating him. And he's so freaked out because they're here and they literally they're going through these photos of him. And they show him a photo and it's a toilet with his shit in it. And it says, basically they're like, what is this? And the guy's like talking to Secret Service. He's like, that's my shit. He's like trying to be serious, but he's really, really nervous because he also bought a gun illegally and it's in his bedroom.
Ooh.
And so basically the Secret Service is talking to him. They're realizing like, okay, this is really dumb. These are just a bunch of dumb college kids. They're like, we want to search your room. He's like, oh, okay. So he goes into his room before them and throws a bunch of dirty clothes over the AK-47 that he has in his closet. It's like a handgun.
That's what I was thinking.
It's can't have in North America legally gun. Yeah.
Woo.
But so they come, they look around, and they get distracted before they can finish and they leave and they're like, hey, we just want you to know, like you're not clear. We're still tapping your phones. Like we're watching you. And so
It's probably on a no-fly list.
yeah. So
Wow.
basically like he tells one of his friends about this. The next day his friend calls and it's like, hey man, you got those basically everyone's still fucking with him and like,
Oh god, his
it's really
phones are
funny.
still tapped, so he's like,
He's like a phenomenal storyteller that was really hilarious.
oh
Yeah.
my god. So there's someone writing a song now?
It's already written. That
Oh.
band Chick wrote a song. It's really amazing.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
how does that song process work? You give them the, like you said, the confessional.
Yeah,
They
so-
have that.
Yeah. So Chick played a show, a New Year's Eve show in Austin. It was into 2020, so 2019,
Mhm.
and they stayed an extra day or two, and they wrote and recorded it in a day.
Wow.
Yeah. They're like an amazing band though. The song is so groovy. Like it could just be a song you hear at dance club. It's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love your music too, and like your taste and everything that you do. It's just like you said, I feel like you're a curator in that sense too. Like you're also able to kind of zoom out as an artist, as a songwriter, and seeing and connecting with these people, and like just listening to your interviews as well, because like you said, you can relate to them. You're talking to them from a different kind of headspace, and I love that you ask these questions too, like kind of introspective questions where you're like, have you ever had a love that's been lost like that? Or you're
Thanks.
hitting them with those hard questions as well.
Yeah, I think one thing about I don't know anyone who does creative stuff that like doesn't kind of do it. There's like a paradox with it, which is that like you're hiding and being super vulnerable at the same time, like all the time. And sometimes I think with artists, like they'd actually prefer to never be asked the questions, even though they've already thought a lot about the answers. They're sort of like, the answers are my songs or whatever, what are my book or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it can be really, not always, but sometimes it can be really amazing to ask someone a direct question about an experience instead of about their work,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. I just thought it was super interesting because I was like, oh my God, he asked that question. Like you just asked it, but you're very like, but you ask permission too. So it's like you're doing it in a way that's not threatening to them, but still a way that they're like, okay, because I think like you said, at the end of the day, it's not like you're trying to put anybody on blast or pull out this information, but it's just another way to connect to the audience. So have you always, been interested in doing that and kind of learning people's creative process as well? Have you taken any of those things and kind of incorporated them into your own songwriting?
I definitely have taken from some of the things that I've like learned along the way. That artist, we had this artist Tristan. My interview with her like blew my mind. She's a phenomenal songwriter and a phenomenal singer, but beyond that, she's just like really, really wise. And I interviewed her while I was on tour in Nashville, and it was kind of like the thing I needed to hear at the time, because I was feeling really like I had been on the road for most of the year, and I was at the end of like a not good tour. I was feeling kind of like deflated, and it was so awesome talking to someone who I was at her house. I was in her home studio, like in her basement. Her husband and her child are like stomping around upstairs. You can hear it. And like, I don't know, it's just someone who's like very much in their art and not concerned about their career. It was really awesome. It's what I needed to hear at the time. I was very, very inspired by that that was exactly what I needed to hear then. But I never really wanted to have an interview podcast thing.
Yeah.
I think the thing that I've like been more accepting of as I've gotten older is like the creative things that interest me, like they don't have to make sense,
So let's talk about one of your creative pursuits. Was your song bath album.
Oh yeah.
So that's something. So I have an amazing intern, and so her and I kind of tag team, and she was doing her research on you, and she's like, I need to know about this song bath album, and just alone even the titles to it, because she's like, how do you connect that? So the song bath album, how would you describe that to people that are not familiar with
It's just ambient music. So it's meant to be background music, and I made it hoping that people would listen to it and fall asleep. And like as we got, we're still in a pandemic, but as we got deeper and deeper into the worst of it here, I really like regressed in a way creatively, and I just started doing like every single thing I ever wanted to do, you know. And I love ambient music. I listen to it a lot, but I really wanted to make it. So I was like doing all these crazy pet projects, and the thing about making music like that that's so like formless and structureless is like it's actually calming to make it.
Interesting. Okay.
Because like you're not like with a pop song, you know, there's like a verse, chorus, bridge, all that stuff. Like you're trying to get everything perfect, and the way that music is made, like you sort of just set things in motion, and there's all these loops and it's repeating. So actually making the music was really calming.
Interesting.
And like in December and early January when I made the majority of it, like the infection rate in Austin was like 20% or something. It was crazy high.
Yeah. That was like when they shut everything down, like re-shut everything down, and curfew. And like you said, very tense time just in general. I think Austin had a pretty tense year overall.
And I just felt like, you know, I was like, all I was doing to make money was recording bands in the studio, which was stressful. Just, I mean, we were in masks, but still just trying to be safe. I'm like managing all these COVID scares because I'm around people in that way. And then I'm really broke because it's the only way I can make money is recording people. And it literally just felt like kind of therapy. And so then I finished the record right after the winter storm.
Oof.
And my studio got trashed in the winter storm. So my friend let me set up at his studio. And so it actually literally was like, I'm making this music that I can just like
for you just to chill out.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, that's kind of how I intended it. And talking with my, you know, manager and my people I collaborate with, they're like, you should just put this out now. You know, if you think about it too much, you're not going to do it. And I think, so I just,
can you be like, are you like kind of hypercritical of your music, or it has to be perfect, or, you know, do you?
No, not at all. I don't suffer from that at all.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. The longer I do stuff, like the less perfect it has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then how did you pick? Cause like it is just this ambient music. So how did you pick these song titles?
They're all just different. I mean, most of them are named after like a place, or it was just little things that like were, the idea of them brought me like a lot of calm.
Oh.
Thinking about them. So some of them are like, I mean, I'm not like, I won't reveal what they mean, but like, I wasn't trying to make sense to anyone else.
Got it.
So one of them was like, my sister lives in Hawaii, and so earlier you mentioned that you've, were in San Diego, lived there for a while. So, you know, when you watch the sunset in La Jolla and there's the little like blip.
Yes. The green flash.
Yes. The green flash. So in Hawaii, on Oahu, there's a place where you can watch the sunset, and it's a point. And so nowhere on the horizon is there any land, like at all. There's none. So even when you're out there and you look left and right, like there's no land, and there's the same like blip thing, but because there's no, I had someone explain this to me, but like your eyes behave differently because they can't like frame it.
Interesting.
It's just water.
Wow.
So the blip is longer. And like one time I walked out there with Mackenzie, and I remember just being like, it was so beautiful.
Did you experience it and you saw it?
Yeah, I saw it, and it was just so crazy because I'd seen it in San Diego before. It was the only other time. But yeah, it was amazing. So that's like one of the song titles. And other ones, I went to Big Bend, and this was actually during COVID, and I went on a canoe trip, and we canoed up the Rio Grande to up St. Helena Canyon. And on the Mexico side, there's a place, it's called Fern Canyon, which is like the most amazing place. And me and my friend camped there for a day. It was just so gorgeous.
So is that kind of how you like wind down? It sounds like connecting with nature is something that, especially as I'm sure like touring and doing all these different things, like you're constantly on the go. So then to be able to kind of, like you said, take a pause. It's interesting. Earlier you said regression, like I feel like you regress, but it's almost like you were just giving yourself time. Maybe professionally you're not, you know, we all have our own benchmarks of where we want to be, but it sounds like you literally took that time to explore and do different things.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I would say I regressed because creatively, because I just started making music like the same way I did as a teenager, which was.
Is that when you started? Got started?
Oh, definitely.
As a teenager.
And like it didn't have to exist outside of my like head, you know. Mm-hmm. So it was I did a lot of things in the last year that I wouldn't have done normally. Mm-hmm. You know, I wouldn't have made the time for them. I didn't really have this. I just had so much time on my hands. So I was like, I'm gonna make a Willie Nelson covers album. I'm gonna make an ambient album. I'm gonna make a all acoustic record. You know, just stuff that I wouldn't have dedicated any time to before. You know.
Yeah.
But to your point about nature and all that, like, I don't know. For me at least, like I grew up in a city. I grew up in Houston, and I think my connection to being outdoors and stuff was like very latent because I, you know, was in a city my whole life.
Yeah.
Nowadays it's like harder and harder to not want that kind of recharge regularly, which like the pandemic intensified it, but I was already there before, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems hard to like. It's just so good for you, for me at least.
Oh, I completely agree with you, and I need to do it again. I went back when I went to Fire Festival. That was.
Oh wow! Really?
Yeah, I went to Fire Festival. I love that. That's your reaction. Yes.
I've never met anyone.
Yeah, there's only like 500 people that actually like made it, and I was one of them. So
wow.
Yeah, it's a fun one. There's actually like, I don't know what's going on right now. It's like trending on YouTube.
Really?
And it's like shot up. I don't know if Steve was like, maybe someone shared, I don't know, but the whole story is on there. But it was a very like traumatic experience. Like they don't show that and they never talked about that, but it was, you know, and I had done these different interviews with like MTV or, you know, I never like told people. I was trying to just kind of go out there and just be like, ta-da, look where I am. And then it was just like this giant shit show. And like my parents were like, hey, this is like on the news. Are you okay? And I was like, oh no, like everyone knows that I'm here. And it's like this total. So it was just, when I got interviewed with MTV, I was going to be on this show. Do you remember True Life? Back in the day? I used to love it. I made Steve watch a True Life. How did you watch True Life? Yeah. Why we were watching some random True Life when, I don't know. Yeah. So I was going to be on like the True Life. Like I went to Fire Festival.
Wow.
And I was going to be like one of the three. Well, the other two people like bailed at the last second. So they're like, well, you're the star of the show. And I was like,
you were on MTV
True
Life?
They didn't release it. So they released Netflix and Hulu. And then they were like, oh, well, we're not going to like compete with that. So they pulled it, which I was really relieved because my time was only supposed to be like 2 hours that I was there. And then I ended up being there for 8 hours. And they like just grilled me and got me to cry a couple of times because they were pulling stuff out. I mean, they're professionals. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So the girl that was interviewing me is super professional, but she pulled out all this kind of like traumatic stuff that I had never really processed. Like, weren't you scared? Because I went by myself. I didn't go with like a friend. I didn't go. I just kind of went out there. It was my first time going out of the country. And so... And, you know, but granted it was to the Bahamas, but it was just it really was. It was like a very traumatic experience. So then after that, I got back to Austin and I just wanted somewhere safe to go. Like I still wanted to go like on a vacation somewhere. So I ended up going by myself to Hawaii. So I went for 2 weeks, which is expensive. I don't recommend that. It's an expensive, like
it is an expensive place.
Eat, pray, love kind of experience to go. But I had the money at the time and I was like, you know, I'm going to go to Hawaii and spent 2 weeks there. And I went to Oahu and just was there by myself. And then I went to Kauai 1 day or 2 days. And then I went to Big Island. I spent the most time at Big Island. So I totally get like you were saying, like just being there, I turned my phone off and it was just so re-energizing and so recharging to be like, wow, this is what really matters was in the environment. And it was just so beautiful over there. There's no place like it, I think, that I've experienced personally.
Yeah. I didn't mean to laugh at your
no. I didn't think you were.
Anybody
no,
it's
hilarious.
Festival.
In hindsight, it's very funny.
Yeah.
And like I said, at the end of the day, like I'm here talking about it, but it was just so stigmatized at the time that I didn't tell anyone I was doing. And I didn't even realize, like I said, I was traumatized until literally like a year later. I was like, because I thought it was funny too, but I just didn't want to be associated as like the girl that went to Fire Festival. Because that's what I would have been labeled as. Yeah. But it was not.
Yeah, it's wild. I guess, so I don't know how that whole story ended, but did they press criminal charges?
Yeah, he's in jail.
He's in jail, yeah.
He's in jail. Still manages to have a podcast. He's started like another like Ponzi scheme in there. Like he's just a serial. And so it was funny. So like I did the whole MTV interview and then Hulu came out and then they came back and interviewed me again to be like, what's your reaction kind of video? And I was upset. I was like, this guy, I just being in that situation. So that's literally like why I kind of started. That's why I'm so like stringent about everything that I do, like on my platform and who I promote, what I promote, the events, because of that reason. I never want someone else to end up in like a Fire Festival situation where they think they're going to something and then they're stuck somewhere and then I feel responsible, kind of like what you were saying earlier about shows. Totally. Like I feel responsible for them doing that. So I mean, I vet out everyone and make sure, like if I'm promoting an artist, I'm like, I've listened to this artist, I can vouch for them, I know who they are and what they're doing, and some of them, most of them. So as best as I possibly can.
We had an artist on the podcast, this guy Harmar Superstar, and like the nicest person to me, to everyone involved, really talented, like just had a super stellar reputation. And then in the last like 6 months, a bunch of women came forward, were like, he sexually assaulted me, like, and it
wow.
it was in like it was in the past, like more than 8 or 9 years like prior to now. That's
no, but still, yeah.
It was a long time ago, but his response was like super shitty, and he was like, "Well, I used to drink then, and I don't drink now." All sorts of like awful stuff.
Wow.
It's just one of those things too, where you're like, "Fuck, I don't want to give a platform to someone like that," Yeah. So I do as much as you can to vet people, but then sometimes,
Well, that's the thing. You never know, and I that's tough.
Yeah.
Because there's these people, especially now, like in cancel culture, like we're talking about these artists and the things that they're going through, and versus like back then, they could kind of get away with those things or do things that you would immediately, like you said, get put on blast and done.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I don't know. I think that's definitely a hard thing to. No, but I didn't take it like you were laughing. It's funny. Like when you go back and I experience it now. I mean, that's why even I told you, because it's hilarious. And like I met my best friend out of it. So her and I'm like, we can survive Fire Festival. Like we can survive anything. It was wild. Yeah. The whole thing. I mean, I literally like a rat race. Like I was there, like opening up boxes and grabbing pillows. I looked like a rat, like running to my tent, my villa.
That's wild.
Just what you thought you were getting versus what you actually got. Yeah, it was a wild experience, but like I said, it came out for the better. Met a really good friend. I'm always trying to just find the positive in something. Like I went to this event. I'm not going to say when, but it was not a great event. But, the connections I made out of it and the people I got to meet, I'm trying to always, you have to, I feel like, especially this day and age.
Yeah, totally.
But how was it? Now, you mentioned Mackenzie. She goes by Mickey though on Instagram. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'm like obsessed with her, like a very healthy,
me too,
non-stalker way.
Me too.
Mickey, if you're watching this, I love you. I know you don't know me, but I might have confessed my love to her that night at Coconut Club. I was like, "You're amazing," but she just seeing y'all's vibe and like that whole like your you're together. And so how was that like, even in quarantine, we were like writing songs together? Because I think that's a very interesting dynamic versus just being with someone who's, like you said, maybe not in the music industry or who's not in that art.
Well, the 2020 is the most time her and I have ever spent together without other people. I mean, we've toured together for a long time, but that's like a different kind of togetherness. I think one of the things that like people who can be in a band well together, you have this thing where you can be in the same place but still be alone. Like when you're on an airplane and you're around 100 people, but you're like totally alone. You have to develop that. You have to be able to switch between those roles. And so her and I have traveled together for years, but always being able to turn that on and off. And the pandemic was the first time we ever spent just like that much time together in that way, So it was actually really amazing. It felt in some strange way like the most normal domestic thing we'd ever had. We didn't do like anything creative together, but that was
really
awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I was making music and she came and sang on some stuff that I was working on, and hired her to sing on other people's stuff that I was producing, but like we just didn't do anything. It was awesome. It was really great.
Yeah.
To just do nothing.
Just to have that separation and just have yourself. I'm sure there's a lot of people that can relate to that. Like just having each other and not.
And just like make dinner,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. Just do very normal, basic things and like be in a place to just appreciate how awesome it is instead of like, I'm just, because even now we're sort of back and like life is just so much fuller now,
Yeah.
So
how are you balancing that now? I know you we talked about it earlier, but like with tour, everything's back. Things are back. You're getting booked again. So kind of what are your plans moving forward with all of that?
I don't know. I mean, I was producing other artists before the pandemic. It really intensified over the last year, and I've enjoyed doing it a lot. I mean, I saw you at that Golden Dawn show. I was working with them today before I came here.
Oh, awesome. Felt like that was like a little family reunion, like seeing all the people I hadn't seen. I was like, oh, hey.
I know, it really was. I've been doing that, and the song Confessional stuff is coming back a lot. I don't really have a lot of desire to like run a full-time band. That was like my full-time job, it felt like, for like.
So when you say running a full-time band, what does that mean? Like what are all those things kind of encompassing when you're running a band?
Well, it's like I've pretty much always had a 5-piece band. So there's that side of it, which is like, we got rehearsal and like I think I had like 14 band members since 2013.
Wow.
I think. I can't keep track. So there's like that side of it. And then, I have an agent and a manager. So it's like just making sure everything's working, and it's just the more people, the bigger it is. And like, I was sort of ready to not tour for a minute, like end of 2019. And then I didn't have to even think about it for a year. And now it's like, it's just like coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in no hurry. I've had some offers to play shows that are out of town and I'm excited about, but before it's like you get an offer to play. I would get an offer to play in Nashville, and then I would get on the phone with my agent and be like, okay, well, how do we do this so that it's 6 shows and we really like maximize the fact that I'm paying everyone to go out for a week and all this stuff. And now I'm like, I'm just gonna go play the show in Nashville. That's fine. I don't need to like scale this up and try to make this a bigger thing, which feels really nice. It's not a way to run a touring business, but it feels nice for the time being.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's I think the thing is that like with the whole indie rock world, like it's all been done before. So I started making records like under my own name, and then there's like this whole career path that's set out for you. And I just sort of followed that, and that led me to this place where I was trying to play like 150 days a year on the road and like do that whole thing.
Wow.
And then not having to do it for a while. I'm like, I don't really want to rush back to that at all. I'm not alone. A lot of people feel that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just like not in a rush to sort of make that my full-time thing again at all. And in a good way. Like I'm in a good place with it. But
did you do some of the live streams and those things, or did you just kind of just take that really like take the time to break? Yeah.
I started this record club where I was like making albums just for people in the record club, and one tier of the record club I would do like a private Zoom. And I liked that, but that was this thing where I'm like, I'm playing for someone who cares enough about my music to like pay for a private Zoom, you know?
Totally.
So it's not the same. It's not the same thing at all, you know.
But it's still very, like you said, it's a way to connect with your fans, and those are the people that actually do care. Like you said, if they're sitting there and they're willing to help support you.
And it was really like, it was super. It still means a lot to me, you know, to kind of have my like career reduced to, in some weird way, like a couple hundred people who are like keeping me afloat was really awesome. It was. I felt like a moment where you feel like you're living in the future. I'm like, I literally am living in the future. I make albums for like 300 people and they're sustaining me, you know?
Yeah. I can see like cool. You're like happy about that.
No, it's cool. It just was a strange and amazing moment where people were thinking really freely, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you still have those connections with those people? Like all those?
I haven't decided if I'm going to stop doing the record club or not. There's part of me that really enjoyed having no pressure, and then there's another part of me that's like, now that the world is back, you know, I'm like, oh, do I want to like just put this out? Like now I want to make music, and I'm sort of feeling more ambitious a little bit about it. But yeah, I haven't decided yet if I'm gonna like be done with it or keep doing it. Yeah. Well,
it's nice to have the space to at least, like you said, you have the space and the time to kind of make that decision, because it doesn't sound like you're just like rushing into anything because you have to anymore.
Yeah. And I have played now. I played one show with the band, and I've done 2 solo sets. And it was, all 3 of those experiences were really amazing to just go out and like play music for my fans and just have it be the most basic thing, you know? Instead of the whole business of like, how do I scale this up? I got to pay all these people. It was like, just me. I'm playing. They're here. That's it. Yeah, that was all great. I played a show on Saturday. It was really awesome.
Where'd you play your show at?
It was at Lambert's.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah, we saw Jonathan Tyler there. When he did, it was like a songwriting kind of, it was really cool.
Yeah.
To have that like series. So do you think you'll do kind of like, was that kind of the vibe that it was too on?
Yeah, normally I like hate that shit. I'm always like, oh, I gotta play with the bands. I want to be a rock and roll show, yada yada yada. But I had a really good time.
Yeah. That's amazing. So then, what do you kind of have moving forward? Like you said, you're not necessarily touring right now, but then also I know like with you in the community, aside from like music, obviously you're this amazing producer, songwriter, all these things. We're working with different artists, but you're also a big activist, like in the community. You're not afraid, which I love. I think, you know, and that's something you call him Curtis Rausch of the Bright Light Social Hour. Not afraid to speak out for different kind of political things. But has it always been something that you've done, or is that something kind of trigger that to be more outspoken on kind of social issues?
I guess I just feel like as a straight white male, you have like every privilege in the fucking world, you know? So the flip side of that is like you have the least risk to speak out for stuff. So I think it's like important. It's like a moral imperative to do it. I mean, the you know, we had 2 pandemics last year. We had one from a flu, and we had a racial pandemic.
Yeah.
You know? And I didn't like, do you know Corey Baum? He has a band called Croy and the Boys.
Yes.
You know, he said
I don't
this
know
thing-
him personally, but I know who he is.
He's an awesome guy. I'm helping him make his record right now, but he was like, you know, he's like, I just noticed, like, I noticed the people in my world that didn't say a single thing. And I'm like, yeah, like, not only did I notice, but like, I'm not going to forget, you know, because I have the least amount to lose, like the least amount to lose in almost every situation that I'm ever in.
Wow.
So I feel like it's not, there's a low risk, you know? So I don't know. I don't know that I feel very differently from most people around me, but I feel like whatever little tiny platform I have, like, it's just so cowardly not to speak up.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's most authentically you. Like, that's just what I noticed from like your platform. And I mean, you're not afraid to like share the things, you know, with your family or with what's going on, like in the world essentially, and especially in Austin. One of the things that you did that I just thought was amazing was like donating proceeds to HAMM.
Oh yeah,
from your album.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, but yeah, I mean, they paid my healthcare premiums for like 5 years, so it's a drop in the bucket.
So because you donate, was it? Yeah, you just donated proceeds from which album was it?
It's this Willie Nelson covers record.
Yeah.
So still now all the proceeds go to him. Yeah, I mean, I hope one day we don't need HAMM and that we have universal healthcare in this country. But until then, it is an amazing perk of living here.
Yeah.
Like the fact that you can, I mean, it's basically impossible in our country to get healthcare if you're a freelancer. It's so expensive. My friend who's a freelance writer, I mean, his healthcare, he has nothing wrong. He has no pre-existing conditions or anything. His healthcare as like what's it called? Premiums. It's like $500 a month. It's like more than a car payment, you know? It's wild. This is not sustainable, the system we have, you know?
Yeah.
And HAMM is it's just such a plus, you know, and no one our age should not have health insurance.
Yeah.
It's crazy how many people I know who decide not to get it because they're like, I don't have 10 grand a year.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, especially like you said, I feel like more people are going and pursuing they're finding other ways to pursue their passions versus just working for, you know, XYZ company, the man that's paying for all those things. I worked as a pharmaceutical medical sales rep, so I always had that luxury of like having the best healthcare, having this, and you do kind of take it for granted because it's just always there. So then going like away from that, and I was like, oh my God, this is how much insurance is. Without that, like you said, for someone that doesn't have any pre-existing conditions, it doesn't have that stuff, it's
wildly expensive. Yeah.
But people don't realize that. So yeah, seeing that, and then, you know, when Curtis was here too, talking about the Sims Foundation and mental health and all these different things. I just, like you said, Austin's very unique like that. And you're very dialed into the Austin community. And just, I see you like supporting these different artists and they're always supporting you. Like, how do you think this Austin community compares to the other cities that you've been to?
You know, I've lived here for a while, so I don't have the best perspective on it anymore. But when I lived in New York, at least, there's just not that kind of sense of camaraderie, you know, and like, I mean, things are changing here. I don't know that we can actually technically call ourselves the live music capital of the world anymore because so many venues have closed, and the population's gotten so big. But at least as of right now, like, it's still one of the things that Austinites value by and large, you know, is that there are musicians here. You can go see a lot of live music. Which is unique and special.
100%.
I hope it stays around.
I know.
I have no intention of leaving or trying to find another place to live, but it is weird. I mean, where me and Mackenzie live, most of our neighbors are not only are they not from Austin, but they've only lived here for at most 6 or 7 years. So they're all from out of state. They're all homeowners, and none of them have deep roots to the area. So it does make me wonder, like, how long will they stay, you know? And I think that that's probably true of most neighborhoods in town. So yeah, I don't know. It's shifting.
Yeah. And just seeing the influx, I mean, with people moving here and But like you said, I mean, that's why I do what I do. That's why he does what he, I mean, because of the music. And because, I mean, this to me has been so fun because you get to actually sit with art. Like artists are here right now. And there's so much amazing local talent here that is head and shoulders above some other places.
What was your like gateway drug into serious music fandom?
Oh man, that's a great question. Yeah, see, there you go with these great questions. Mine, it's so funny. I think I was always into music. Like I heard you talking about it on one of your podcasts as well, but like I was the illegal downloader of my college. I had I had Napster and I had like the most space on my computer to like download all the songs. So I've always loved music. And I would like make the mix CDs. I played basketball in college. So it's funny is I almost went to Southwestern.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. I had gone there, which was Southwestern was lit. And I didn't realize like, I was like, okay, these kids. And so, but I like really wanted to get out of the state. So I ended up going to Mobile, Alabama, but like going there and then but not even really like, I didn't go to shows growing up. My parents never really went to shows. It was just one of those things where I found the more I just started kind of going to all of them. But I didn't have, I mean, the way that we have festivals now, like we didn't have that back when I was in school. So it was like, you really had to kind of search those out. And I think, yeah, I mean, San Antonio, San Diego, didn't kind of more so. But I think when I got to Dallas does have a great music scene.
Yeah, totally.
And I think it's so underrated because there's so many other things to do in Dallas, like sports teams and art and museums and you know, there's just so many other places to go that I think I remember like a Fantagram concert. I was living in Dallas at the time and it didn't sell out and then Fantagram had sold out like 3 nights in Austin, like in a row, but yet it wasn't sold out in Dallas. So I think that Dallas was kind of underrated and that's kind of was like, oh, I can go see all these bands that I want to see, like these indie bands and I just started doing that. I think that's probably what it was. And then coming here, there was so much music. Like I came here for the music. It felt more like Dallas wasn't my scene. Not knocking Dallas, but it just wasn't the crowd. I didn't know who I was when I was there. It was very like kind of just trying to figure out that. And then when I got here, this is when I felt like, okay, this is who I'm around now and who I'm talking to and who I'm hanging out with are probably the most authentic and the most real connections because this is who I am, you know? So it's like you meet and you attract those people when you're being your most authentic self versus like, you know, some of the people that I was connected with at the time in Dallas. But yeah. Even like building a life here. And like you said, I hope it stays. I hope that we have those places to go to and, you know.
Well, and there's always that I think there's some degree of truth to this, but like it's like whose Austin are we losing, you know? And I'm sure every 10 to 15 years there's some percentage of this population that's like, well, my Austin's gone. Yeah. You know? So I do wonder if like I'm starting to slip into this category of like, oh, I can see that some version of Austin that I felt very close to is changing.
Yeah. So how long have you been in Austin?
I moved here at the end of 2012. But I did go to Southwestern in college. So I spent some time in the area and then I left for 3 or 4 years and then I came and moved in 2012. Yeah. Yeah. So it's been a minute. Yeah.
And did you feel like your community and the people that you were with have kind of like been the same throughout this time? Or did you?
A lot of them. Many of my college friends lived here when I moved here. So that was a big, and then all my musician friends, I was like, it's just easier and everyone's finding more success. I should move. Why the hell am I living in New York? You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I never really looked back. I don't have any like wanderlust in that way. Like I love traveling.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, it's like one of the big reasons why I have loved touring, but like I have no desire to move. And even as I've gotten further into my career, I definitely see the benefits to like living in LA, but I have no desire to live there. Yeah. Like at all. I mean, I love LA too, but I don't care enough.
But like you said, yeah, there's just the opportunities are there. There's just a bigger city. There's bigger agencies in music and things like that.
All the above. Yeah. Yeah. Although it's like, and
the weather's perfect. all the time. I lived in when I lived in San Diego, I lived there for 2 years, and I was just like, oh, this being able to like sit in your car without having your AC running like full blast and just like put the windows. We're like, oh my God, I'm not like sweating. And
in June 2019, we went on a tour. We left Austin and made it to like Sonora or Ozona. I don't even know if we made it that far, but the AC broke in the van, and we got to Balmorhea at like 4 and like all went swimming, and it was like so hot. It was like 100 degrees. We decided to drive all night so that we wouldn't be like, you know, in the heat. And we got to San Diego, and then so we did that, and then the last day we were driving through literally the hottest part of the desert, up over whatever mountains they are, like to go down in San Diego. It was so fucking hot. It was so fucking hot. We're all losing our minds. And then we get into San Diego, and it's like,
you see the temperature start dropping.
It's like 70 degrees and completely gray, and we're like, what nightmare are we living in? And everyone's like, oh yeah, June gloom. June gloom. I'm like, this sucks. All I want is it to be like 80 degrees and not 110 degrees in the car. But yeah.
Yeah, you've got your May gray and your June gloom.
Yeah.
And then other than that, but I mean, the weather there is always perfect. That was that literally was probably like the most sad that I was to like leave a city. I contemplated when I was leaving Dallas, I was going to like move back to San Diego. I literally written San Diego like on my boxes. Like I was trying to will that into the earth or into existence, but I ended up moving to Austin and kind of never looked back. But yeah. I love it here. And like you said, I think there's just so many different things that make it unique. But San Diego definitely has its perks with the weather in LA. And I wouldn't mind doing like a half and half kind of situation. Yeah. Like when it gets really hot here. I don't have like my AC is broken in my car.
Mine too.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh my God. So you feel my pain.
Oh, I definitely get it.
Oh, it's miserable. Like I'm miserable.
Yeah, no, it's bad.
These last 2 really weeks through have been like.
It's hot. It's really hot. We were just, so I just went to a wedding in Santa Fe where it's hot, but it's much drier. And the car I was in had AC, but I was like, man, Austin, like this is awful compared to this, you know, because it's the same temp, it's just no humidity, so it's way better.
I remember I was dating this guy from England one time when I was in San Antonio, and we were dating, and he lived in San Diego, and he had never experienced that before. So he came with me back to San Antonio, and I was like, I hope you're ready for this, like it's Texas summer, because he's like wanting to go back for my birthday. He's like, I'll be fine, you know, not to worry, just a little heat, I can handle it. And then we get there, we literally walk off the plane, and he's like, oh, because it was hot, but I was like, we're still in the plane, we're not like in a car yet. And I was like, he's like, oh, it's not that bad, it feels like I'm in a sauna, you know. I was like, oh, just wait. So we're like on the river walk, like walking around. He's like, oh, my eyeballs are burning, like what is this, like why are my eyeballs on? And I'm just dying, and he's dying. And after that he's like, okay, I can't do this. But yeah, Texas summers. It's not. You feel my pain then right now. This is like the worst. I was like, of all times, like not have AC. This is like not the time.
I've been running a lot. I've been really getting into running, which I've like never been athletic or anything, but it's gotten so. I get up now at like 7 o'clock in the morning because it's the only time to run. It gets way too hot. And today I got up and I went outside, and I was like, it's 75 degrees outside as opposed to 85, you know. Today was amazing. I ran it was so easy compared to 3 days before, where it's 90 degrees by the time I finished. Yeah. So people they take it for granted. I'm like, no, it's hot. It's Texas. And even though like I'm from San Antonio, like I should know, and it's still never, it makes me angry. Like when I'm in that heat, I walk in, and it's just it's like one of the things I'd rather be cold than be hot. I would, because at least I could put layers on. I don't know, being hot just is. Well, you're from Newport, so you're used to the cold with the ocean breeze.
With the wind.
Yeah, it's terrible.
The wind hits your face, and you're just like fuck. But I don't mind the heat so much, because growing up in New England, your summer is basically July.
Mhm.
That's why Newport Folk Fest is so amazing, because July is perfect weather.
Wow.
But
Yeah,
I,
it's
like
unreal.
if you have a pool, like I always beg my parents for a pool, but it doesn't make sense if you're in New England, because you can have it open for like 3 months.
Yeah.
Right? So it's
Yeah,
like,
totally.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
I enjoy the heat, I guess, because I enjoy the weather out here because it's like basically year round.
Mhm.
Like there's a few months in the winter where it gets a little cold, and even then it's not like cold, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Whereas in like New England, it's like you get a few months of really good weather, and then it's just like miserable the rest. So I'll take the couple months where it's like I'm dying just for the rest of the year, you know? But
Yeah.
Well, I know. So this is going to be coming out after your big announcement that you're making.
Which announcement is that?
The one that you're making on Wednesday.
Oh,
For
yeah, that
Thursday.
we're opening for Spoon.
Yeah. See,
And
I didn't want to
Mohawk.
say it. I wanted you to say
Oh, yeah.
it.
That's all good.
But yeah.
Yeah.
But this will be coming out the following week. So it's safe to say. But yeah, how did that whole thing come about?
So Jim, the drummer in Spoon, he produced 2 of my records, and that's how we became buds.
Okay.
And he's one of the like partners in the Song Confessional. So he does a lot of the recording. He doesn't do any of the podcast stuff, but he does a lot of the recording in the bands.
Got it.
So he and I are pretty close. And then Mackenzie works as a stylist. And so she just assisted the photographer for them on their like new press photos, which honestly I think had more to do with them asking us to open their show than, because we've opened for them in the past, but I think that like they just hung out with her for 3 full days. So
Yeah.
yeah, they're like, I mean,
Is that one of your like top bands you would say, or something that you've like listened to that's inspired some of your music?
oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was a teenager, my brother gave me a Spoon album and was like, "This band is from Texas." You know, he lived in LA. And he's like, "They're from Texas. They're really cool." I remember listening to it, and it just felt so much more attainable because they were from here.
Yeah.
You know, are from the same state as me. Yeah, I was like pretty foundational bands for me growing up.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I decided during the pandemic is that I'm just gonna let myself be their fan, and I don't care if it makes Jim uncomfortable. They're like they're a very cool band, you know.
Uh-huh.
Like, I mean cool and like the I don't mean hip. I mean like they're not like effusive on social media.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a mystery around them. I always felt a little bit like it was lame if I was openly their fan, but I'm like, this is so dumb. You know what? I'm not going to pretend like I don't think it's cool when they make new music and all that stuff. And yeah, no, I'm excited. I mean, the only full band stuff I've been doing has been basically playing this Willie Nelson stuff live.
Mm-hmm.
And so I put together a couple of people who were in my live band for a number of years, and then just some friends. So it's much more of like a friend hangout thing, and it still feels like that now, you know. So Jim hit me and was like, "Hey, would you guys want to open the show?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And like I get to do it with 6 of my favorite people.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited.
And where is that going to be?
It's at Mohawk.
Oh, Mohawk. That's right.
Yeah, which is one of my
so
favorite
great that
stages.
it's back. Like, thank God.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. So you guys get to kind of rock it out at Mohawk. What a way to come back too.
Yeah, it's exciting. And those guys, like, Jim's has been one of the most cautious people I've seen during all of COVID.
Really?
So the fact that he, you know, I'm excited for them because they did make an album over the last year, and they're like, I think gearing up towards like doing all that again.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah.
Well, I felt like that was the hardest for like huge artists during that time because they weren't able to tour and hit these big stadiums or hit these big festivals or these headline, you know. So that was definitely not conducive to their kind of sound and lifestyle. Yeah,
at all. I mean, yeah. The music industry like legitimately shut down. I think that I've had trouble explaining that to people who are very removed from it. Like, it legitimately shut all the way down. Like mainly the live music industry, but even to a certain extent, like there were 3 or 4 months where no one was recording, you know? Like that's wild. It's like all the way shut down.
I think it's one of the more harder hit industries during the pandemic.
Totally.
Definitely.
All the way down the list, like obviously musicians and all that, but then you get the people who are setting up stages, you get the people who are selling tickets, you can just go all the way down. It's just like,
I still feel like we're feeling the effects of that, because I know people that left that were here, like producing shows, that went back to their hometowns because they had to.
Yeah.
You know, and there's still so many people that were affected, that are still affected. They're still coming back from this. So,
well, in the same way that, like, you know, basically all restaurants are understaffed at the moment. It's been similar to the music industry, because people are like, I'm not fucking going back to that. You know, like, I'm not going to go work at a music venue being the door guy and like getting underpaid. Like, fuck that. I'm not doing that. So in some ways, I think it's been a positive thing. And, you know, in a city like where we live, where it's great, there are a lot of music venues, but it's also oversaturated, and therefore people get paid less. Like, I think it's good that some places closed. I hate that anyone lost their job, but you know, it's probably less exploitative now. It's just good.
Well, what are you looking forward to? That's obviously you have the show, but what are the things that are kind of coming up for you that you're excited about?
What am I excited about? I'm excited. So the song Confessional, we just opened a permanent booth at the Hotel Magdalena.
I was trying to swing by there earlier today, and I just couldn't make it by there. So tell us about it.
It will be there. So it's not going anywhere. Okay. Basically, anyone can go and give a confession.
Is it taped? Or you're still just recording it?
Yeah. So it's like self-prompted. There's like an app.
Oh.
So anybody can go give a confession, and we're doing an artist in residency program there. So like this week, this band Leyline.
I love them.
Yeah, they're great.
They're so great.
So they're staying at the hotel, and they're going to write a song based on someone's confession. So I'm excited. And the hotel is like very into this. Like there's been, they made it all possible to start, but like, they're like, oh yeah, we'll put up a band for a week. Oh, cool. Yeah, great. You know,
no big deal.
It's exciting. It's a just totally new endeavor, which I really like. Beyond that, I'm working on a couple people's albums that I'm really excited about, and I've slowly been like feeling like I want to write my own. I always call them crybaby records. I don't know why I call them that, but I've been wanting to like make a crybaby album again, where I write songs about myself instead of like make an ambient album or something. Which feels nice, because I've been doing it for, you know, more than half my life. So it feels nice to like start wanting to do it again. Beyond that,
what's this? I know you have like this remember the Alamo project. That's what Curtis was talking about when he was here. Which again, it's just this unconventional way of producing music, which I think is very unique to you. Thanks. That you don't hear, because you hear like, you know, you're literally doing songs from like this book versus.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that been really able to reconnect with is that what I always liked about being a musician and making music, like as a teenager when I got into it, it had a lot less to do with putting out albums and going on tour, and it had a lot more to do with like creating something where before there was nothing. So there's nowhere to hang out on a Friday, but then when you have a show, everyone has somewhere to go. You know, when you write a song, all these people who play music, they have a song to play. You know, it's like being the vessel for a lot of creativity. And one of the things I like about producing other people's music is like you get to just, before there is no recording, and you get together and you make a recording, you know? And the more I focus on that and the excitement of that, the less I like give a shit about writing a song about my mediocre day. You know? And so my friend Jason Stanford, who wrote this book, Remember the Alamo, just came out. And you grew up in Texas, you'll really appreciate it.
San Antonio.
We're heavily indoctrinated with this bullshit story of the Alamo. He basically gave me a copy of the book like 8 months before it came out, and said, hey, he's like, I just feel like there are songs in here, you know, maybe you can read this, and if you're interested, like, you know, we've got this book advance, and maybe you could make some songs out of it, and we could produce a record. And I was like, okay, well, let me read the book. And then I read the book, and it was just really amazing. And yeah, like I'll just speak for myself, but I definitely have always had a love-hate relationship with Texas, in the lore around Texas, but I can also recite all of the things that I'm supposed to be proud of about being here. And the thing the book really helped me realize is like, you're just indoctrinated with this like heroic white supremacy narrative of like how our state came to be. And in reality, Texas is the only country in the world that ever had slavery written into the Constitution, you know? Like, it's a fucked up story.
Wow.
You know? And so yeah, the book's, it's also written in a really like readable, easy to digest fashion. It's not like a dry ass history book at all. So yeah, it's awesome. So basically gave it to me, and then I read it. I've been working on it with Kurt and Jack from Bright Light and with Mobley, and hopefully we'll have something out by the end of the year. I don't know.
Okay, so that's when we should expect something like that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm waiting.
But in the meantime, you should read this book, Remember the Alamo.
Is it out so you can read?
It just came out.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so we'll have links and all that to everything. Yeah. Very, very cool.
It's really good. There was a chapter of it published in Texas Monthly, I think last month. Yeah, it's really great.
That's exciting. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's cool. It's normally like you said, you see like you read a book and then they make a movie out of it or something. But this is just super unique to have soundtrack made.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be cool.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a fun trend that comes out.
And I think that like, you know, Texas is really obsessed with itself. And the thing that the book really put into perspective for me is like, it's a particularly like white generational thing to be that obsessed with Texas history.
Interesting.
And it's all bullshit. Like it's truly a myth, you know?
Wow.
Like apparently in the book they talk about this, but if you pull like Gen Z, like half of that generation thinks that the Texians, like the white Texans, won the Alamo. Because you're just so indoctrinated with this idea that it's this glorious history. In reality, it's like, no, you know.
Wow.
But it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to check that out. So how can people find you on all the things?
Pretty much everything is Walker Lukens. There's only one other Walker Lukens I know of in the world, and he's Walker Lukens 1, and I'm Walker Lukens.
Okay. Not to be confused.
No, easy.
Awesome. So music, Instagram, sound all the different streaming things. Easy. Well, I'm excited. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate you, and enjoy this conversation.
Likewise.
Hopefully we'll get to see your Spoon show and head over there before. All the different shows. Any way that I can support you, please let me know.
Thank you.
Part of the fam now. So thank you guys so much, and we will see you next week.